Hey, it's Jamie from Guildbrook Farm. We take you along on our journey to become more self-reliant, and today I'm going to give you guys an alternative to pressure canning on a glass cooktop. So I've done a lot of canning videos over the last year or so, and the one question that always gets brought up is, can I can on a glass cooktop? And you guys have seen me time and time again canning on my glass cooktop, and you asked me if it's okay for you guys to do it as well. Well, here's the thing. Not all glass cooktops are made the same, and any manufacturer that manufactures a glass cooktop, if you ask them if you can can on it, 9 times out of 10 they're going to tell you that you can't. And the reason for that is because the weight, well, one of the reasons is the weight of the canner can cause the glass to crack. And also, some canners do not have a flat bottom. Some of them have a concave bottom, and heat can get trapped under there, causing a hot spot and causing the glass to crack. So for those of you guys that are looking for another solution to canning when you don't want to use your glass cooktop, or you don't want to risk using your glass cooktop, I'm going to take you outside and show you what we got. So for those of you guys that are looking for an alternative to a glass cooktop, one thing that you might want to consider is a propane burner. Now, the one that we got is a Camp Chef 2 propane burner. I believe it's called the Explorer. The reason that we got a 2 propane burner is so that we can can on one side and heat up water or cook something on the other side. So right now I have some hot water going for some beans that we're going to can in a bit. The other reason that we went with this particular one is because you can buy accessories to it that basically turns it into a modular grill. So we got 2 accessories to go with this. One is a small grill that fits on one burner, and the other is a griddle. And you can use them interchangeably or take them off as needed, and they all come with really cool cases, so they're portable. You can take them anywhere you need to go if you're camping or whatever. So this is our first time canning on this. We're going to give it a try. I have some beans that I need to can. I am using a non-USDA recipe. Now, I'm going to tell you anytime that I'm using a canning recipe that is not approved by the USDA. This is going to be a non-USDA recipe where I am using dry beans. You'll see a lot of other channels doing this. It works great for me, and obviously it works great for some other people, but if you guys are just getting started on canning, you might want to stick with the USDA rules until you fully understand them before you start, going off on your own and doing your own thing. Now, if you guys are new to canning completely, you guys might want to check out our Canning Basics video. It's our Canning 101 video. It's a fully comprehensive video that's going to answer a lot of different questions about canning that we get on a frequent basis. And we also have a follow-up video to that, which is the top 10 canning questions. Definitely check out those videos. I'm sure they're going to answer a ton of questions that you guys might have about canning in general. So for now, we're going to get back inside and I'm going to show you how we can our beans, and then we're going to test it on the propane burner, see how it works. All right, so we're going to be canning some navy beans today. These are a bean that I use quite frequently, so I go through them pretty fast. I have them in Mylar bags. If you guys are interested in Mylar bag storage, I'll leave a link to that video up above. We are going to can these in pint jars. Now, it does not matter if you use wide mouth or regular mouth. I have a mixture here. My particular canner, which is the All-American 921, holds somewhere between 14 and 16 pints. So I believe I have 14 here, 14 jars that are ready to go. Now, our jars are not sterilized. You do not need to sterilize your jars if you are canning for more than 10 minutes. And we are not. You just need to make sure that they're clean. So we have some clean jars here. And for canning beans dry, you're going to use a half a cup of beans per jar. And you do not want to go over that, because what's going to happen is the beans are going to expand, and if you use too many, that's where you're going to end up with broken jars and a big mess. So I'm going to measure out 14 half cups or 7 cups, and I'm going to put it in this colander here. We're just going to give them a good rinse, and then we're going to put a half a cup in each jar. My funnel is MIA. You're going to want to use a funnel for this, but right now mine is missing, and until I find it, we're just trying to make do here, but use a funnel if you can. we're going to use about a half a teaspoon of canning salt in each jar, completely optional. You want canning salt, which is non-iodized salt, because if you use something like pink Himalayan sea salt, it's going to make your liquid really cloudy. Honestly, it's not that big of a deal, but I do have canning salt, so that's what I'm going to use. About a half a teaspoon per jar. Now we're going to go bring in our boiling water, and we're going to fill up our jars, leaving a 1-inch headspace. So something to keep in mind is you don't need to sterilize your jars, but you do need to make sure that your jars are warm and not cold when you add the hot water. If you add hot water to a cold jar, your jar is going to crack. That's the exact reason that we are filling these indoors instead of outdoors right now, because it's a fall day and it's pretty chilly out, and I'm afraid these jars would chill off really quickly, and if I added the hot water, they'll crack. Now we're just going to take a washcloth that's damp at the end, and we're just going to wipe around the rims to make sure there's no salt or anything on there that would prevent the rings or the lids from sealing. Now you want to add your lids. Now a lot of people like to simmer their lids. It is recommended by Ball that you simmer your lids, which will help soften up this gummy and make the lids seal a little bit better. I've never had an issue with sealing, so I just use them right from the box. Saves a little bit of time. I also like to reuse my lids. I don't have any used lids right now. I damaged them all. They all needed replaced, so that's why I have all new. But if you guys are interested in learning more about that, again, I'm going to refer you back to that canning basics video where I talk a little bit more about that. Now we're going to add our rings, finger tight. Alright, now we're going to go put our canner on. I already put 2 inches of water in the bottom of the canner, and I already lined the rim of the canner with olive oil. We're going to go turn our burner back on, put it on, and then carry all these cans out and get these guys going. We're going to put our separator on. Now we're going to put our lid on, lining up the arrow. Lock it on. Secure this using the opposite toggles. All right, we're going to just turn our burner on medium. Now this particular burner, I believe, puts out 30,000 BTUs, which is pretty darn high. You want to make sure that you don't turn this up too high, because pressure canners and super high heat are a bad combination. You just want to make sure that you're not building up way too much pressure inside that pressure canner. So we're going to keep it on medium, and we're going to wait until it starts to vent, and we'll get right back to you. All right, we're starting to vent. We're going to let it vent for 10 minutes before we put the weight on. All right, it's been venting for about 10 minutes now. I'm going to put the weight on for our particular location, which is under 1,000 feet. We're going to put on 10 pounds of pressure. I'm going to leave a link down below to the National Center for Home Food Preservation for how to do the legit way of making beans, and you can follow the weights and times in there for your location. All right, now we just need to wait until our gauge gets up to 10, and that's when we're going to start our time for 75 minutes or an hour and 15 minutes. All right, so that came up the temperature faster than doing it on the range inside. Like, it came up really, really quick. So I'm going to keep an eye on this. I'm going to start turning my temperature down just a little. And we start our time right now for an hour and 15 minutes. Now you just want to make sure that this does not drop below 10 pounds of pressure, and you also want to make sure that it doesn't keep climbing up above it, because that's where you run into some big problems. So we'll just keep adjusting the temperature, making sure it stays right there, a little bit above 10. Alright, it's been an hour and 15 minutes, and we're just going to turn our burner off. And then we're going to let the pressure drop. We do not remove the weight until the pressure is all the way down to 0. One thing to note that I noticed when using this propane burner for the first time is that it heats up so much faster, which is so much more efficient than using, say, the glass cooktop or the range. So I imagine, you know, even though you're using propane out here, which yes, you have to pay for, but the electricity used from inside, from it taking longer to heat up, I think it's going to even save you a little bit of money by doing that, or save us a little bit of money anyway. But the temperature does come up super quick, and because it burns so hot, it is very, very sensitive. So it took a little while to kind of finagle it to get it to the right pressure. Without it going too high or too low, but once I got it on, it was no problem at all. And I just think that's just going to take a little bit of practice, but really super efficient using the propane burner. So we'll be back as soon as the pressure drops down to 0. All right, our pressure's down to 0. Now we can take off our weight, and we're going to let this vent for at least another 10 minutes. Probably going to leave it vent a little bit longer. Just because I do not want to open this canner outside, because the temperature is way too cold for the jars inside. I'm afraid they're going to crack. So I'm going to let this cool down enough until I can handle it, and then I'm going to bring it inside, and then I'm going to offload the jars inside. Voila, beautiful beans. This is how I do my beans. It is a little bit cheaper to make them yourself than to just buy canned, plus you get to control the amount of salt. But again, this is a non-USDA recipe, so if you guys are interested in learning how to do it the real way, I'm going to leave a link down below to the National Center for Home Food Preservation website, and you can follow their instructions for soaking the beans and heating them up and going through that whole process. This is just the way I do it because it's a whole lot easier, and I like easy. One thing to note with the propane burner, actually two things. First time using it, and it was amazing. But the first thing that I noticed is that it heats up super quick. Like, it came up to pressure, up to 10 pounds of pressure within less than 5 minutes. Whereas when I had it on the glass cooktop here, it would take maybe 15-20 minutes. So that's actually beneficial, because, you know, I'm obviously wasting a lot more electricity cooking on pressure cooking on a glass cooktop than I would be using propane out on the propane burner. The other thing with a propane burner is because it heats up to 30,000 BTUs, it is really super sensitive with the flame adjustment. So when I got it up to 10 PSI, I had to finagle with it a lot longer than I did on a glass cooktop. So I just wanted to make sure I got that pressure right, where it wasn't climbing too high up above 10 and where it didn't drop below 10. So I did require me to sit out there and baby it just a little bit longer than it would with the stove. But honestly, the thing is amazing. I'm really glad that I got it. And that can be an alternative for you guys who are wanting to pressure can, but you can't pressure can on a glass cooktop, or you don't want to, because you don't want to break your glass cooktop. So there you go. If you guys like this kind of stuff, I have a lot more videos coming out on canning and a bunch of other stuff. Stay tuned, and we'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.